whether I have a spiritual practice that's helped me out that I do each day. That's interesting. Okay, so perhaps I like to answer a question without answering the question to begin with, because I always like to check in with regards to what do you actually believe when you write or ask that question? So there's quite a lot of things going on in that question itself. So for example, spiritual practice is the word that I'm going to pick out. And what do we mean by spiritual practice? What defines spiritual practice? And each day. So I would say from Kat's perspective, spiritual practice equates doing something each day. Okay, so I'm just going to choose those two aspects for now. You'll get used to me the way that I answer questions, because I am very much an advocate for being who you are, finding the methods or the process that works for you. So it is important that you learn from someone else. That's the whole point of having teachers and mentors. But ultimately, and this is from my own experience, and took me quite a few years to work this out, but ultimately, my belief and experience is that the moment I connected with the way that I do animal communication was very much a reflection of who I am, what I believe, and what I want to achieve. That was the day that the confidence really stepped in. So prior to that, naturally, as a student, I would follow whichever teacher I would learn from, or whichever book that I was drawn to. So you might have been in this position where you either have read several books on animal communication and how some of the things resonate and some of the things don't resonate. So same with teachers and animal communicators that you've come to know. However, there are certain things in animal communication where it appears that the majority of animal communicator teachers share in common. So I would say this is where the spiritual practice comes in and the each day bit comes in. And I'm here to say, let's talk about it from your perspective, from your viewpoint. So if you're here listening or you're catching the replay, what is your definition of spiritual practice? What does that look like to you? What is it that needs to happen for it to be described or accepted as a spiritual practice? And what makes you choose that? Okay, so Carol, yeah, you say perhaps a meditation. So you have pointed out a practice, a practice that is regarded as spiritual, where the majority, if not almost all, animal communicators as well as teachers talk about as an important part of animal communication, would you say? Okay, and you've also written a walk in the woods with your dog. Okay, so what's important is, are they spiritual practices to you? And how do you know if it's a spiritual practice? So therefore, let's look at, what does that mean? What is the purpose of a spiritual practice? why would we aim for the practice to be spiritual? Yeah, makes you feel balanced and calm. So we understand spiritual means really quietening our minds, perhaps, is another association. It would be transcending our energy, raising our vibration. What else would spiritual means? It also means ensuring that we are in a very positive state. So you wouldn't describe being full of worry and angst that you are in a spiritual state. So a spiritual practice is to help us to get into a spiritual state. So what does that spiritual state mean? So Carol, you've mentioned a walk in the woods and meditation. Does the meditation and the walk in the woods have something in common for you? So for some people, a walk in the woods could be really stressful because that dog could be a real runner. So they don't feel like they can concentrate. Or some people are actually scared of walking in the woods. And yet for other people, a walk in the woods is so nourishing, so nurturing. You can really relax and connect, with the trees and the ground. Okay. So being present for the communication is the spiritual purpose of a spiritual practice. So for you, Carol, feeling for a walk in the woods and meditation equates to calm. So would you say, Carol, that being calm is important to you in order to be in the state that is conducive, beneficial to communicate with Roxy or other animals? So I hope that I've planted enough seeds for you to recognize that a spiritual practice is different for everyone, or that is important that we recognize that a spiritual practice is different for everyone. However, there are some that are accepted kind of across that it is the spiritual practice, meditation being one of them. Okay. So what is the spiritual practice that we do? And let's go to the next part of the question. Does a spiritual practice, is it vital, necessary, important to be done every day? Are there kind of rules around spiritual practice? Do they have to be daily, or can they be as and when, or does it have to happen at all? So if you don't have a spiritual practice, what does that mean? Does that mean you'll not be able to communicate with animals? Okay. So I'd like to kind of track it back to perhaps a spiritual practice comes from religion, where it is known that it needs to be daily, sometimes twice a day, 3 times a day. So there is that kind of structure. And I believe that that's where it can come and influence us when we look at what we think or mean about spiritual practice. So it appears to be accepted that for us to communicate with animals, or for us to enter into the state that we need to enter into in order to communicate with animals, we also need to have a practice that can calm us down, can keep us in the right state of mind in order to. And really, that state of mind is where we don't want our conscious mind to rule, because we know what happens when our conscious minds rule. And when we look at animal communication, the channels of information comes through via energy channels, telepathic channels, and therefore I also say the subconscious channels. So how can we ensure that the energy channels, the telepathic channels, and the subconscious channels, which are usually kind of in the back seat in our day-to-day, because the conscious mind is so strong and is always leading the way, how can we kind of swap it around so that the conscious mind goes, I can be in the back seat for a little while. What a relief. And then the unconscious and the intuitive senses and the telepathic and the energy channels can come to the forefront. So that to me is the reason for the need to create a situation whereby our unconscious, telepathic, our imagination, our creativity, our intuitive channels can step forward. So you then have to decide what will help you to do that. So instead of looking at, oh, it's meditation I need to do, or it's a walk in the woods I need to do, or it's a sound bath I need to do, or it's a chanting that I need to do. Instead of looking at those are just options, those are suggestions. It's like those are the menu of things you can do. But again, everybody's different. So you say to yourself, what would help me to bring forward my subconscious, bring forward my intuitive senses, bring forward my energy channels, and let my conscious mind step back. So for some people, it can be swimming, having a shower. It can be listening to music. It could be a walk. It could be gardening. It could be a shamanic journeying. Yeah. Is that helping you to work out which spiritual practice is important and necessary for you? So remember, it's about allowing your unconscious, subconscious to come to the forefront and your intuitive senses to come to the forefront, and allow your conscious mind to really take a back seat. So whatever works. I say it this way to begin with without answering the question directly, because when I studied animal communication, what I learned was meditation was always how you start to prepare yourself before you then ask the questions to the animals and receive their communication. And I found that in meditation, either my mind would wander everywhere, or within seconds, and I mean seconds, not even a minute, I would fall asleep. And then I would be so frustrated. And then I would think that I was not doing it right. And then I would be worried that I won't be able to communicate with the animals. And then I would worry that my connection with the animal wouldn't be right. So therefore my information was going to be wrong. And so there was a lot of stress for me. And I persevered. I kept looking at different meditations, different visualizations, and they all had the same result. I even tried doing it standing up. So I really struggled with that. In spite of that, I still went ahead and did the communication because there were people, case studies that were waiting for me to complete these case studies. And I couldn't not do them because, hand on heart, every time I said, all right, I'm going to meditate, I've been almost programmed that the word meditation means I would fall asleep. Okay. So for me, when I started to go, oh, hang on a minute, I need to find a different way to do this. I realized for me, I mean, if I was in the ideal situation, I would have swim. I love water. Water completely just calms me right down, but keeps me calm and focused, because what I didn't want to be was sleepy. So I knew I had to find a practice that would help me to be calm and focused. That was key for me. All right. So then I realized there were times when actually my energy was already kind of low. I mean, I'm quite a sedate kind of person. I'm hardly kind of rah, rah, rah on a normal thing. So what I found was, because I meditated, I lowered my energies even more. I don't mean negatively. I meant like, just kind of, it was almost like I've poured more calm onto what's already calm. No wonder I was like, oh, this is nice. I mean, when I fell asleep, it felt beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It was like the best feeling. But by the time I come round, I just was in no fit state to then enter into a 30-minute or an hour communication with the animal. I was just like, when you just wake up from a beautiful, relaxed, trance-like sleepy state. So it was causing a problem. So I discovered that my energies already was, it didn't need any more calm. So actually I found that if I went for a brisk walk, or I would just kind of jump up and down in the room and, like start smiling. And what I'm doing is I'm raising my vibration. I'll smile, and actually that helps me. It like I'm calm because I'm calm anyway. But what I needed was focus, because I had to stay on track with the animal, So that's me. So I haven't quite answered the question. I'm a werecat, but we're having quite a good discussion here on the comments. So let me go to them. So Joe, you say, I love a good sleep during a communication. I find it has to be a guided meditation to stay focused. And even then I often fall asleep. Yeah. So you want to look at your kind of like your makeup, if you're on your feet all day as well, and I know you, Joe, you're like, super busy, your brain's always having to work overtime. So coming in with a meditation is literally a meditation to help you completely relax. But with communication, you want to look for the state of mind that allows you to be focused, which is why you're saying it has to be a guided meditation. So communicating with animals is not about going into a trance-like state so that you're just so sleepy and so, you want to be focused. You want to still be conscious in many ways to talk to the animal, receive their answers, and even write their answer down. Okay. So Carol, you're saying, comforting to hear you find meditations difficult. I dislike doing this full stop. I mean, I've come to embrace meditations, and not to say that I find them difficult, because I'm all about the language that we use. I used to say that. I used to go, oh God, I can't do meditation. So I've learned to refrain, because anything we say becomes the truth. So I want you to change this, Carol, to say the relaxing meditations are not conducive to you being focused and calm. So you might need to find meditations that raise your vibration. Okay, because there's so many different types of meditation. So we think meditation is about calming us down. I am sure there must be meditations out there that raises your energy. Okay, so look for visualization, meditations that raises your energy, or play some music that really gets you to go, wow, right? Because it's not about being active, it's about your energy being vibrant. So daydreaming state, we're not sleepy when we're daydreaming. You know, I don't know about you, but when I'm a passenger in a car and it's a summer's day and I got the window down and we're, you know, having a scenic drive and I don't have to worry about the traffic or, you know, because I'm not the driver and I'm just looking out the window and having a good old daydream and there might be music playing in the background. I mean, that's such a beautiful state to be in. Almost that kind of energy because you're not sleepy, but you feel quite rejuvenated. And you like, wow, where's the time gone? Like, where have I been? Okay, so something like that would be really good if you're finding meditation brings your energy to the point where you're sleepy. Okay, so to answer Kat's specific question is, what spiritual practice do I do on a daily basis? The answer to that, or the way that I'll answer this, is I say that I have learned and cultivated a lifestyle where I live each day intuitively. So therefore, my spiritual practice is not something that I view as something I set aside to do to ensure that I am almost like boosting my spiritual energy. Now, I haven't always been like that because of my work as an animal communicator, because I've made loads of changes in order to be a full-time animal communicator and change my, believe me, my entire kind of way of living. I now live as intuitively as I possibly can. And each day, there's so many aspects of my life that feeds that intuition. If I go back to the days when I was in a stressful employment or had situations with family or or partner where things were a little bit more tense, or I was a carer, to a family member. So my energy was also kind of needed by others. I did need more committed time set aside, which I would then call a spiritual practice, because my energy wasn't always able to just be open. My subconscious couldn't always come to the forefront. My subconscious needed set time for me to say to my conscious brain, okay, back off now, you know. And it took me a lot longer to physically relax because I was tense and stressed about other things. So again, look at your lifestyle. Does that make sense to you? So I used to feel guilty that I didn't have a spiritual practice on a daily basis. But actually, I would encourage all of us to practice spiritual ways to open up our energies at any time of the day. So it can be that if you happen to be out walking in the woods, make that the spiritual practice. When you're, for me, when I'm in the shower, I mean, that's where all my best ideas happen. That's when I'm so in touch with my imagination. And so it's about creating opportunities for your intuitive senses to come to the forefront, for your subconscious to come to the forefront, for telepathic and energy channels to come to the forefront. So whatever it is that you know you can do to let them step forward, then don't worry about whether you do spiritual practice or meditations or anything, because by allowing those to step forward, those are the channels our animals come in to talk to us.